Okay. Cool. All right. So as always, feel free to stop me if you have some questions. But so basically, we want to make a budget, and most people can make a budget on their own. But if you've never made a budget, well, we're just going to kind of run through it. So, I'm damned if I remember my steps, but it's always bad when I list the steps down because sometimes I don't have enough, and it's not wrong. It's just a different way of thinking of it. But anyway, so the first step, you basically want to tally all of your expenses. The second step is you want to calculate uh, uh, how much income you have. The third step is basically you subtract the two, and the fourth step is you ask yourself is this sustainable? Is this good? So for the first step, again, this is vaguely self-explanatory, but for the first step, again, so list all expenses, and so there's a lot of expenses that you might not think of, right? Like so the obvious ones, you have rent. That's ob- clearly, or like a mortgage if you happen to have a house. Um, Things like that. But and then there's you other ones like gas, water. If you don't have a nice well, I don't know what else. Sewer. If you live in the city, you have garbage. There's a lot of stuff you pay for that you might not necessarily realize. And then you have even more things like if you have a phone, if you need internet, if you even get internet. Let's hope you don't have HughesNet. If what else? I don't know. You can
You're
think.
mixing a big one.
Huh? What's the big one?
Food.
Food. Oh, that's a good one. I'm losing it. Um, Food is mildly important. Maybe you don't eat though. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. And then there's like very important ones like Hulu and Netflix because how else will you watch the Great British Baking Show? It's so good. I can't stop watching it. We weren't having class right now, I would be on the couch watching the Great British Baking Show. Um, but yeah, so it goes on and on. And these small ones do add up. Like Netflix isn't. I mean, I don't. I use my brother's Netflix, so I've never paid for Netflix in my life, but I do pay for Hulu, and Hulu's is expensive, and I don't know. Food is also relatively expensive, and you add those things together, and you have no money. So that's the first step. So that can be a bit. The second step is to list all your income. List all income, right? And obviously, this is probably a smaller list for most people, right? It's like your jobs, etc. You work a job to get income. Hopefully, hopefully, all these things in the first step kind of balance out with the income, right? Anyway, then you do expenses or income minus expenses. All right. We'll talk about more of that later. And then you ask yourself if this is working. So then you consider budget. So like, is it sustainable? Is it sustainable? Right. And by sustainable, I mean like you're not spending $500 more than you make every month. It's not that wouldn't be particularly sustainable. Um, but yeah, so basic things. Uh, and I hope everyone who like I mean if you're so I've had students in this class in high school before, so obviously they don't have much of a budget. But if you're out doing things on your own, I would hope you have at least considered in some vague sense a budget. So you're not just earning money and spending things indiscriminately. So I have this like long situation here. Let's just kind of go through and see what happens for poor Anna. I don't know what happens. I just kind of made these numbers up. So she makes 850 every 2 weeks. All right. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this like paragraph and I'm going to make two columns. Two columns. I'm going to make expenses, and then something's under here. It's a piece of eraser, and then I'm going to do income. All right. As I said, income is generally a shorter list, and you can do your budget however you like. Usually things are monthly, just because a lot of bills are monthly, like gas and water and whatnot. Maybe not water. I don't know. I have a well. Um, So a lot of things are monthly. So oftentimes you'll do your budget monthly, but if you wanted to, there's no reason why you couldn't do it bi-weekly or even weekly if that was your thing. But I'll do it monthly just because it is more normal, I think. So again, I'll do a monthly budget for poor Anna here because I don't think it's going to work out well for her. All right. She makes $850 every 2 weeks, and so there's 4 weeks in a month. And so what does she make? 1,700 income. All right. So again, monthly. So if you see a number here and it doesn't quite look right up there, just realize you're scaling it up or down because it's monthly. She pays 400 in rent every month, so that's just under the expenses because it's already monthly. Her utilities include 35 a month for electricity. What, 15 for internet? 90 for her cell phone plan. Again, I'm assuming that is monthly. Most are. My cell phone plan is also with my brother. We like have a family plan. I sometimes don't pay that either. I don't leech off my brother, but you know, she has a car payment of 125 a month. So I'll put that in this list as well. So there you go. And let's see if I can fit it all in. I can't really. And then she has a biannual. So this is where it gets a little funny. Car insurance payment of 375. So some people do pay their car insurance monthly, and that's just a decision you have to make when you get insurance. But you can also do it biannually, and so like I pay mine twice a year. And so to figure out how much that is a month, just realize that there's 12 months in a year, right? And so if you pay something twice a year, then this 375 is essentially covering you for 6 months or half a year. So to get the amount for monthly, you would take 375, right? And it covers me for 6 months. So I'm gonna divide it in six. So it's about 6250 a month for Anna's car insurance. All right. And then she pays student loans. She pays 250 every 2 months. So again, we're doing it monthly. So whenever you have a number that's not in terms of month, 1 month, you have to divide it or multiply it. So like the salary was every 2 weeks, so it was twice a month. So we multiplied it by 2. But now this is every 2 months, so we need to divide it by 2 for the student loans. So 250 divided by 2. 250 divided by 2. So 125, right? 125. Sorry for the shake. And is that it? Oh, and she also spends approximately $100 every month on day-to-day expenses, lunch, candles. I don't know. Maybe she's really into candles. She has all over her room. It's like a candle factory. It's everywhere. It's not good. She's not living a healthy lifestyle. She's shopping at like Yankee Candle that much, but that is monthly as well, and that's kind of low. I feel like I feel like a lot of people probably spend more than that. Although I guess given COVID, I don't do anything exciting, so probably not anymore. But all right, so now we have the income 1,700, and we've all this list of expenses. So we've got to tally it. This side's already tallied because there's just one item. We've got to add all these together and see what happens. Maybe she'll break even, or maybe she'll be fine. I didn't know. So 400 plus 35 plus 15 plus 90 plus 125. There we go. Plus 6250 plus 125 again, and plus 100. 952.50. 952.50. Oh, so she's actually pretty good. So she can buy more candles should she want to, because my monthly expenses tally up to be 952, like $1,000, and my income is almost twice that. So she's actually doing pretty well. So 1,700 minus 952.50 equals, there we go. So 1,700 minus 952.5, 747.5. 747.5. So she has a ton of money left over. Money left over. So she has no issues. She could spend more, and I mean, again, realistically, a lot of these numbers, these are fake numbers, but a lot of them are really low. Like, $100 every month is probably low, especially if you eat out or buy lunch on the regular. And there's more things that she probably has to spend money on. So maybe she has student loans. Oh, I already have that in here. That's probably really low for student loans. So anyway, depending on where you go to college and whatnot. But any questions about making a budget?
You never put a savings account in there.
I, I didn't. So that is a good point. So she could take this $700 and maybe she'll put 200 every month into a savings account, which is probably advisable. If you're making 700 more than you need, you should probably put a lot more in because, who knows how long it'll last. But that's a good point. You could put it in savings. Good. Put in savings.
Any savings though, she can always put it down as part of the budget.
Yeah.
For tax purposes. Just like off to the side kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Especially if she's putting money away for education purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Or retirement.
Oh yeah, that's true. So I didn't really clarify. So like on her income here, I guess my writing it, I assumed that was like her take home, but you could also figure maybe that's her gross, what is it, gross salary, or her overall salary. And so in that case, you'd probably take away a few $100, if not more, just for taxes and retirement and stuff like that. So yeah. So if this is her take home, then she's fine. But if that's her like just overall pay, then she probably will need more money, or at least she'll be break even. Right. Cool. All right. So obviously we can do budgeting like this on a personal basis. And so, I forgot. So here we go. So we should do this first. The amount of money you have left over every month in your budget is called your cash flow. Cash flow. And I already computed it for Anna. But as I said, basically cash flow is just if the money you have either left over or the money that you are spending too much. So for instance, Anna's cash flow we said was $747.50. And so she has all this extra money. So yes. So yes. Sustainable. All right. But yeah, so if you have positive cash flow, that means you're making more than you spend. And if you have negative cash flow, it means you're spending more than you earn. So that would be a bad position. But she has positive cash flow. Positive cash flow. Right? So it's a convenient way to basically judge a budget. If your budget says you're positive cash flow, then you're good. If it's not, then you're not. All right. And break even isn't, I guess, bad or good, because she could be break even. Suppose, like Gary was saying, suppose she decides to put away a lot of money for savings, retirement, all that stuff. And so in that case, she could end up almost break even, or she would still be fine because she's putting away money for different purposes. So break even isn't necessarily bad, depending on what you're considering your budget. All right, so that's good. That's that. All right, now here's what I was trying to say. So we can talk about personal budgets, like Anna's budget, or we can talk more about like long-term budget issues. Like in this example, we're going to talk about budgeting in relation to just a car and how much money you're going to spend on a certain car versus another car. And it's basically the same kind of premise. You're tallying up expenses, you're tallying up, I guess you don't really have income in this case, but you're basically tallying expenses and see how much it's going to cost you for one car versus the other car. So it's kind of the same idea, but you're budgeting for very particular purposes and over longer term. So here, this guy drives 250 miles every day or every week, presumably to work and back. He spends $1,100 a year in repairs. He gets 18 miles to the gallon. All right. Should he buy a new car costing $25,000? If he gets 54 miles to the gallon and maintenance free for 5 years. So basically it's maintenance free for 5 years because it's a new car. So presumably it won't have any big issues. You'll need oil changes and stuff like that, but you won't need to like fix the transmission or anything, hopefully. Unless it's like a Volkswagen. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah. So what we want to do is we only know that this car is maintenance free for 5 years. And so what we can do, and again, this will end up being a judgment call in the end. So it's not like a right or wrong way to do this. But what we're going to do is we're going to compute the cost of owning car A, the old junker car he has, for 5 years. And then we're going to compute the cost of owning the new car for 5 years. And we're going to see which is better. And again, it might not be a better in a strict like mathematical sense. It might be a better in a judgment call kind of sense. Like, oh, I'm going to spend a little more maybe, but I'll get a new car and it won't be that off. It'll be kind of close in cost and I still get a new car. But let's see. So again, 5 years. So let's tally some stuff up here. Oh, I don't know the cost of gas. Let's just say gas costs, I don't know, $2.50 a gallon. I don't know what the cost of gas is. I think it's around that. I don't know. Maybe it's more. I
Gas
never.
price right now is like $2.15.
Oh, okay. That's less than. So we'll use $2.15 to be more accurate. I know I always just go to the same gas station. It's not like I shop around. I probably should, but. All right, so let's first, again, we're doing it for 5 years. Let's first see how much gas he uses, right? Because besides gas, the only other expense for his car is going to be $1,100 a year in repairs, all right? So we can just add that on at the end, and that will give us the cost. So I'll call this little junker cost. All right, again, the junker is his old car. So 250 miles a week. 250 miles in 1 week. Right? And so I'm going to compute this stuff in the way that we have been doing with units. But if you wanted to, you could obviously just compute this really straightforward, right? So you drive 250 miles every week, 52 weeks in a year. You just multiply them together and then times 5. So any way you do this is okay. I'm just going to do it in this sort of unit conversion notation because that's what we've been doing for a few weeks now. Month? No, it's been a few weeks. Maybe a month. I don't know. So he goes 250 miles every week, and we want to know how many miles he goes in 5 years. So I know there's 52 weeks in 1 year. All right. And so you'll note the weeks cancel, and now it's miles per year. And then I want 5 years. So I don't know. There's you just multiply times 5, but as far as the units go, I don't know, year, 5 years. I'm just going to multiply times 5 years. I don't know what you'd really put at the bottom. The years cancel, and you get 5 years. I don't know. I'm not sure how you would set that up actually. But yeah, you just multiply times 5 years because this is the number of miles he goes in 1 year. So 5 times it is the number of miles he goes in 5 years. So you don't need to do anything there. All right, so let's see what we get. There's probably a way to interpret that, but I just can't think of it right now. So 250 times 52 times 5. He drives a lot of miles. So 65, actually it's not that many, 65,000 miles over 5 years. So 65,000 miles in 5 years. All right. Now this car gets 18 miles to the gallon. So what we want to do now is find out how many gallons he uses. And the way we can do that is again using our unit conversion. So I have 65,000 miles. And what I'm going to do is I know that he gets 18 miles to the gallon. And so the way you can interpret that or rewrite that, and this is just like we've done before, is 18 miles per gallon. And so it's just the same as 18 miles so per gallon. All right. So sorry, I've got a lot of stuff going on the top here. So you know, 18 miles to the gallon is the same as saying 18 miles per gallon, which you can read as that. And so if I want to convert our miles to gallons, I can put the miles down here, the gallons up there, and I know that every 18 miles you use 1 gallon. So the 18 miles will go on the bottom, and the 1 will go on the top. And then you'll note the miles cancel. Again, I'm doing this in the unit conversion notation. For some of you, it might just be really obvious that if you have some number of miles and you have a miles per gallon, you just divide the miles by the MPG. and that gives you the number of gallons you use. But if that's not clear to you, this is what we're doing. Like we're kind of just using unit conversion to get the number of number of gallons we'll need. Anyway, I get 65,000 over 18. There we go. So I get 65,000 divided by 18. So it's 33,611. We'll round down for this poor man here, for poor Joe. What did I say? 3,611. It's a lot of gallons of gasoline. And again, this is in 5 years. It's a lot. I guess I probably use that much though, because I think on average, if you drive a car regularly, you put about 10,000 miles a year on your car. Like if you're shopping for a car, you can probably expect that. So 65,000 over 5 years isn't too off the beaten path. Anyway, now we need to find the price. So the price of that gas going up here, let's just say gas costs $2.15. We'll just say it costs $2.15 for the whole 5 years. Realistically, it's not going to, but you know, spherical chickens and all. So so this is the number of gallons, and I'm saying the gas costs $2.15 a gallon. And so I guess we can even do this in unit notation. So 3,611 gallons times 2.15 over 1 gallon. Right, so the gallons cancel, and I just get dollars. So it's going to be 3,600 times 2.15. Again, you might just find it obvious that you multiply them together. If that's the case, and don't worry about the unit stuff. But my cost looks like it'll be about $7,764. 7,763. I don't know. Maybe I'll be a little better. 89 cents. All round proper. All right. So that's the cost of gas with his clunker car. 7,700 over 5 years. All right. So we have that. So that's the cost of gas, and we also have to add on the fact that the repairs will cost $1,100 every year. So total cost of junker over 5 years is, so it's going to be the cost of the gas, so 77.63 and 89, and then plus the maintenance. So this is gas. And the maintenance we said was 5 times 1,100. Right, so that was, well, it's 3 repairs. All right, and we're going to add those together to get the total cost. So 5 times that's just 5,500. So plus 5,500 is 13,263 and 89 cents.
All right, I'm confused because it says he spends 1,100 a year. Oh, we're doing it 5 years. Never mind.
Yeah, sorry, that's okay. Yeah, we're doing everything over 5 years. And the only reason we're doing that is because we know that this car will be maintenance free for 5 years. After that, we don't really know what happens, so we can't really talk too much about that. Yeah, all right. Anyway, so we get 13,000, I said, and this is dollars. 13,263 and 89 cents. He's spending a lot of money due to all this driving. So that's for the junker. And now right away, you can kind of see that he's not gonna do better by buying this $25,000 car, right? Because over the 5 years, he's only gonna spend 13,000 on this car. So spending the 25,000 just won't make sense for Joe here. Unless something catastrophic happens to his junker car and his repair costs go up quite a bit. But let's see how much the gas is for the new car, because maybe the gas will make it worth it somehow. All right. So for the new car, where's my corner? There we go. So new car. So again, we'll compute the gas cost. And luckily, we already know how many gallons. Here he goes, he goes, oh, we know how many miles, sorry. He drives 65,000 miles over 5 years. So what we want to do is we want to use his new MPG to compute how many gallons he'll use for that car, and then multiply that times the price per gallon. All right, so 65,000 miles times, and then again, we'll do the same thing we did for the previous car, but his miles per gallon now is 54 miles to 1 gallon. And so just like in the previous one, the miles cancel, and we'll get a smaller number, right? Because his MPG like tripled. So 65,000 divided by 54 is about, oops, it's about 1,203. I'll just round it down. That's why I did the other one. All right, so he uses about a third of the gallons. It's like exactly a third. All right, and then we multiply this number times the price per gallon. So 1203 gallons times, and the price will stay the same. Again, it wouldn't in real life, but you could always take an average and it would be okay. So $2.15 over 1 gallon. Now the gallons cancel, and I get, let's see, times 215. So about 25.89. 87 and 96 cents. All right. So this is the cost of his gas in this car. Oh, and this is over 5 years as well. All right. And so like if you compare the cost 2,500 versus 7,800, so like he's spending much more because his gas mileage in the junker car is three times or a third of the mileage in the new car, but the cost of the new car is 25,000. So total cost of new car. So it's going to be the cost of the gas. So 2,587 and 96, and then plot the cost of the car, 25,000. So that's gas. Then this is just the cost of car, right? So it's really expensive. It's much more expensive. So it's what 27 587.96, right? So it's double just about, because this is 27,000 for the new car over 5 years. His old car over the same period of time is 13,000. So it's literally half as expensive just to keep the old car. But I do want to point out that it does demonstrate how much the gas mileage matters, right? So suppose, maybe he doesn't buy a brand new car. Maybe he doesn't buy a $25,000 car. Maybe instead of buying a car that costs 25,000, he buys a car that costs like 10 or 12, like like an old Civic, not an old Civic, but like an oldish Civic, like a used Civic, or like any sedan. If he buys something in that range, like costing 10 to 15,000, then you add your gas to that, and you're in the same area as your junker car, but you have a new car, and the gas mileage is much better. So over 5 to 10 years, your gas mileage is going to really bring your costs down, whereas the junker car, your gas mileage is still through the roof. So it's not, or your gas costs are through the roof. So it's not great over the long term. So it's like a balancing act. There's no right or wrong answer. In this case, you probably shouldn't buy the new car, but you should probably buy a better used car, maybe. All right. So as I said, there's no like binary answer here. It's just comparing numbers. Any questions? All right. So let's keep going. Sorry, I periodically have to check the chat. I don't know why it doesn't pop up. So this one, again, same kind of premise, but this one's about college and like, is college worth it? Yeah. The jury's out. The average salary for a holder of a bachelor diploma is 67,000. The average salary for a person holding only a high school diploma is 37,000. And these are all averages. Obviously, there are exceptions to both. You have people with college degrees that are making very little, and vice versa. So the average cost for attending a public in-state college for 4 years is $100,000. Is college worth it? And again, just like the car problem, there's no right or wrong answer here. It's just like you're comparing numbers. So and it's kind of interesting. So I was doing some Googling on this to find a number yesterday, and I guess if you take into consideration, and it depends on the college. So if you go to private versus public, if you go in-state versus out-of-state, there's a lot of factors. But if you consider like lost income and interest and loans and stuff like that, the actual cost of going to college is like 4 times this. Like because you could have been working instead of going to college full time, and so you could have made income and all that stuff. So the cost, and if you go to private colleges, is higher than that even. So there's a lot of costs, but this is just for tuition, I think, and board. Um, Maybe not even tuition, it depends. Anyway, so what we can do is we can see how long it would take to earn this money, basically. So, so what's the difference here? So 67,000 minus 37,000. So let's see what that is. So, I mean, I guess we can just figure out it's 30,000, right? But I'm committed. So 30,000. All right. So this is how much money per year, on average, the person with the bachelor makes more than the person with the high school diploma. So average, the bachelor, the BS holder, earns on more, not on, I can't say on average again. So average, the BS holder earns more than the high school earner. All right, that's kind of awkward, but you understand what it's saying, right? So every year, on average, the person with the high college degree works, he makes 30,000 more, right? So if it costs $100,000 to do the college, then what you can do is you can say, oh, well, how many years would it take me to recoup my costs? So you just do 100,000 divided by 30,000, and it's like 3 1/3. So after, by 4 years, the college degree holder will have made back his money. Now, this isn't really true. So I'm going to put that in quotes. It's not really true. And so what happens is that these are average numbers. So 67,000 is the average over a lifetime. So you might graduate college and you might work 10 years before you make anything in the range of 67,000 or 80,000 or anything like that. And so it might take you a lot longer than 4 years to make that money back. But I guess the idea is that over your lifetime, on average, it will take 4 years to earn the money back. So it on average is probably a good investment. But again, there's so many factors that it really is hard to say. So probably a good investment. All right. But it depends. I mean, if you go to school, my friend went to school for a math master's, and he graduated from UB, but he works as a post office man. He works as a postman now. So like he didn't have to go to school to become a postman. So he could have just done that. He didn't know he wanted to become that. So anyway, it's the thing. So like, I don't know. It can be a good, it can be a bad investment. It's up to you. Any questions? Again, just kind of fun budgeting things. Anyway, so now we're getting into chapter 5. That's just all I want to talk about budgeting. So chapter 5 is about interest. Chapter 6 is about more complicated things. So we'll talk about saving plans. We'll talk about like mortgages and credit cards and things like that. But for now, we're going to start off simple. And we also talked about these a little bit. I looked back at the notes. We talked a teeny bit. We talked about these back at the beginning of this. I think it was like lecture like 5 or 6, if I recall. We did some examples with interest on like bank accounts. And so now we're going to go back, kind of get into that more like rigorously. So let's see. So start. So the principal with an A, if I'm not mistaken, I will never know, is the initial amount of money you have in your account. So the annual percent percentage, or is it percentage? Like percent? I'll say percent. Percentage rate, APR, is the total amount of money interest paid on your account in the year. And so the APR can be a little funny, and we'll do some examples, but it's the amount of interest based on your principal. In some accounts, it's based on your interest too, but it's the amount of interest overall you're getting for the year. So as we'll see, it can sometimes be broken up in some ways. And then blank is the interest calculated based only on the principal and payback due. So this is what simple interest. Simple interest. So simple interest is basically you give the bank like $1,000, and simple interest is the bank sends you a check every year for like 5% or 1%, whatever the APR is. And that's it. It's not, the interest in simple interest is not used to compute the next year's interest, which is something that happens with compounding interest, which is what we talked about when we did exponential functions. So that's why it's called simple interest, because it's just based on that initial principal that you give them. The interest itself after that doesn't matter as far as computing the new interest. So this example should make it clear, hopefully. And so you'll find this with bonds a lot. Like you'll have a government bond. Like, I don't know, like my grandmother at one point bought me a government bond, and it was the most difficult thing to cash. I had to fill out forms and send things to the treasury. It was a whole hassle and a half. But the bond itself they're usually worth like $500, $1,000. They're not like super like big, but it's like $500 say. And what they do is you give the government that $500, and every year, or whatever, they give you some percent interest back on it. But the interest never goes back into, like, the bond is always a $500 bond. It doesn't become a $600 bond. It's always a $500 bond. And so your principal is fixed, and it can't change as far as the interest is concerned. So like here, we have a bond. So by bond, I basically mean I have an account with simple interest. And it gets 1.5% APR. So that's just the interest rate, essentially.
Isn't there something kind of like a bond that the bank does that if you leave your money in there for like say 5 years, you'll get a whole lot of interest, but if you take it out earlier than 5 years, you don't get any of the interest?
I know that they have something called CDs, and those you can't. Yeah, you have to. I'm not good at finances, to be honest, but I know that there's something called CDs because my father also got a lot of those. And you basically you set in a month, give them money for like X years, like you said, and it gets interest. And after it matures, that's what they call it, at the end of like the 1, 2, or 3 years or whatever, then you can take it out, or you can keep it in there. But if you want to take it out early, you have to pay a fee. So maybe that's what you're thinking of. But there could be other things. I really don't know. I'm not too familiar with all these financial things. But yeah, I know CDs work like that. I don't know what CD stands for, but certificate of deposit, maybe? That doesn't sound right. But yeah, it could be something like that. So how much money will we have in 5 years? And so as I said, we're getting simple interest of 1.5% every year on the 1,500. So if I make a little table, year, and it says how much money total we would have. So year, and I'll put interest. Maybe I'll put principal, and then interest. So bloop, bloop, bloop. So my principal, as I said, in simple interest, it stays the same. It never changes. So like, again, you can think of like a bond. It's like $500 bond. It's never going to become another kind of bond. It's just that bond forever. So 1,500, year 0, and I don't know, year 0, maybe I have no interest because I just deposit it. So I'll leave that blank. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. So to compute the interest, you just take 1.5% of your principal. 1.5%. So here, I have 1,500. Ooh, sorry about that. There you go. And then times 1.5%. And we just did the percents, right? So 1.5% you can compute by doing 1.5 divided by 100. And so you get 22.5. So in the first year, my principal is still 1,500. And my interest is 22.5. All right. And as I was saying, you never, so in compound interest, which we talked about kind of briefly way back when we did exponentials, in compound interest, you take this money and you put it back in the account. And then the next year, your interest will be slightly higher because your previous year's interest was put back. But in simple interest, it's just kind of chilling there. They'll like send you a check or they'll just pay it all to you at the end or something, but they don't consider it as being part of the principal. So for the next year, for instance, my principal is still the same. And so as a consequence, my interest is the same interest. All right. And so it's the same the entire time. Nothing changes, which is why simple interest is super lame. Like your principal stays the same and so does your interest. It's always just $22.50. All right, nothing changes. And so to find how much money I have in the end, I just tally up my interest. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So $22.50 times 5. So the total interest I earned was $112.50. And so if I wanted the total amount of money I have at the end, I just add that back to my principal. So plus 1,500 is $1612.50. So in the end, I have, so my total is $1612.50. Right. So it's really not great. Basically, it's the growth is linear, right? So every year you add on 22.50, 22.50, 22.50, 22.50, 22.50. That's it. And so if you want to think of it as a linear function, right? Like my principal is my initial value. So this would be my b in y equals mx plus b. And the 2250 would be my m. It would be my slope. It's how much I'm increasing every single year. And I don't think I have this on the next sheet. Oh, I do. I'm too good. And so like I was just saying, to calculate the simple interest in an account with principal P at an APR of R% over time T, we can use the formula. And just like I was saying, so it's a line. It's y equals mx plus b, where b is my initial, my principal. And then my slope is my rate, my percent of my principal. So it's going to be P times R. P times R over 100. That's my slope. And then times the number of years. Right? So like in the example we just did, so in previous example, right? Oh, this is just the interest. Maybe I'll fix this. I'm gonna make this the amount of money. Amount of money, I don't know. Amount of money generated. Like the amount in your account, essentially. So if you're in the previous example, I have, I'll call it A. I have A equals 1,500 plus 2,250 times T. All right. So hopefully that makes a little more sense. So you start off with your principal, and then every year you add 2,250 in interest, and that's it. That's the equation for simple interest, essentially. You just keep adding that whatever the percent is, and it's fixed. Let's try this one. So this one will kind of use what we were talking about. So Maria invests $16,000 at 3%. Again, simple interest. You don't often see this, I don't think, in real life outside of like bonds for 19 years. So how much interest will she earn? And so as I said, the interest is fixed. So the interest, it's fixed per year, is equal to P times R over 100. So my P here is 16,000. My R is 3%. So I have 16,000 times 3 over 100. So we can see what that is. So 16,123 times 3 divided by 100. So it actually works out really nice. 480, right? So my interest every year is 480, so a year, because it is, I didn't say, but I'm assuming it's annually. So some simple interest you can do whenever. There's no reason why you couldn't have an account that got simple interest monthly or weekly, but most things are done by yearly or I guess, or I guess monthly too. But so she gets this much a year, and I'm investing it for 19 years. So I just take the interest she gets every year and multiply it times 19. So interest for 19 years equals, so it's 480 times 19. 480 times 19, which is 9,120. 9,120. So it's not an unsubstantial amount of money, right? It's actually a lot of money, but her interest rate was decent, 3%. She had a good amount of money invested to begin with, and she invested for 20 years. So $10,000 over 20 years is not great. It's like $500 a year. So it's not it's 480 a year, but it's not a great investment over the time frame that you're talking about. It just kind of seems like a lot at the end. Anyway, so how much is the account at the end of the 19-year period? So just like I have my formula, it's A, and then it's going to be my principal, 16,000, plus my interest. So it's my principal with an A, and then this is my interest. Okay. And so when you add those, what do we get? Oops, sorry about that. There you go. So we get $25,120. $25,120. So she has enough to buy that car for Joe. I don't know if Maria knows Joe in this fictional universe of math problems, but if she did, she could give him the money. But yeah, and so let me just review this. Spilling my tea. Let's review this again. So like, just hopefully you understand where this comes from. I know it's a little messy, but P is my principal, R is my interest rate, R of 100 is just my interest rate as a decimal, P again is my principal. So this here is computing R percent of P, and I multiply it times the number of years, and I'm getting the interest. So it's my total interest over T years plus the principal. And so down here, this first part, we essentially just computed this thing in the parentheses, the interest rate per year. And then in the bottom part, we computed the total amount. So we computed the principal plus the interest rate over 19 years. And so at the end of 19 years, she should expect 25,000. All right. So, well, that didn't take nearly as long, though, the material. I don't know why. But yes, we did get to compound interest. But I guess we'll end here today, or end with this today after we finish it, because I guess it's almost 5 o'clock. So I think we've already talked about this. Compound interest, we did way back. So it's kind of like a review, but we're doing it more rigorously. So unlike simple interest with blank, the interest is calculated based on the principal and the interest. Unlike simple interest, with compound interest, I see what I was going for. Compound, oh wow, I can't spell. Compound, it's right there. Interests. So what that means is that with simple interest, let me get my table, right? The interest was kind of left on the side. It never became part of the principal. But with compound, every year, we'll take the interest and add it back in to the principal. And so every year, our interest will be slightly more. And it doesn't seem like it will matter, but it actually grows really, really fast once it picks up, because it's exponential growth instead of linear. So let's try this one and it'll be done. So we'd invest 2,200 for 1 year with an APR of 5.2%. Suppose the interest is simple. How much interest will you make? Right, so I just want the interest. So I'll use the formula that I had before. So for the interest over it's only 1 year too. So it'll be 2,200 times 5.2 over 100. And then times 1 year. You don't need to put that, obviously, but let's see. So 22,000 or 2,200 times 5.2 divided by 100. So it's 114 and 40 cents. 114 and 40 cents. So I make that's how much you make every year in interest with this 5% interest rate. And generally, if you do get like a bond or a CD or something in a bank, the interest rate's really low, relatively speaking. It's like 1 or 2. I think when things are good, it's like 3. So 5% would be crazy. To get higher interest rates or like higher returns on your investments, you have to like do more risky things. Like CDs and bonds, I think are all not very risky. So that's why the interest rate's really low. Let's see, so that's the simple, but let's see what the compound is. So suppose the interest is put back into the account and the interest is calculated monthly. Okay, so this is, let me get another sheet of paper. There's a couple of things that'll be tricky here. So this is the APR, is 5.2%. So remember, APR means annual percentage rate. So it's the total amount of interest that you get per year on your account. So it's the total amount. And so when I compute the month, when I do things monthly, the APR has to be divided by 12, because if I compute the APR on its own, then after the first month, I will get no more interest, because the APR is my total, it's the annual percentage rate. It's the total amount of percentage interest that I get back per year. And so if I'm doing things monthly, the APR you take and divide by 12, because you want the monthly interest rate. I believe that's how it's done. It's like a banking thing. It'll depend on the problem. If you're given the APR, then you do things like that. If you're given just an interest rate and they say it grows by some percent interest per month, then you don't do that. So this is just because it's the APR, the annual percentage rate. Right? So that's why we're dividing it by 12. And let's figure it out. So 1 year, and we want it every month. So it's gonna be a bit of a table, but let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll just do the first few maybe and see if that helps us understand. And then the interest. All right, so if I do my APR divided by 12, so my APR is 5.2%. So divide by 12, what is that? So per month, it's 0.43%. All right, so every month, that's how much interest I'm gonna get in my account. All right, and so again, over the whole year, if I get 0.34% interest on my account, over the whole year, I'll get a total of 5.2% interest in my account. All right, so let's do it for the first year. So, oh, and I should make another list, sorry. Let's make this the principal. And we'll put interest in another column here. There we go. All right, so for month 1, the principal is, what was it, 2,200. And the interest, again, we do 5.43%. So I already have it up. So times 2,200. Oops. So it's 9, what? Oh, it's 0.3%. Sorry. So 0.43 divided by 100. Then times 2,200. That sounds better. So my interest is $9.46. All right. So now, so as I was saying, with compound interest, you take the interest and put it back in the principal. So the next year, my principal is not 2,200, but 2,200 and $9.46. All right. So now I compute the interest. I do times 0.0043. All right. So now I'm doing the 4.43% interest on my new principal. hold up. Oh, sorry. $2,209.46 times 0.0043. So now my interest is $950. All right. So you can see the interest grew, and you can keep going. Again, we're not going to do all 12, but I just want to do a few more so you can kind of see. So now I add that plus 2209 plus 46. So $2,218. 2218.96. And now I do the 0.43% on that. So times 0.0043. And 954. We're really going places. All right. We'll just do one more. So plus, let me add the old principal to my new interest. So 2218.96. And so I get 2228.50. And then I do my interest on that to 0.0043, and I get 958. So you see how much it's growing now? That's not really that much, 958. All right, and you could keep going. But if you were to add all those up, you will get more money than you did with simple interest. And it's really, we'll talk about this more too, probably next week, but there's something called the effective interest rate, or basically like the effective APR. And so what's happening is that every month you get 0.43% interest on your account. That interest is then added back in. And over the entire year, the interest that you get is the total APR. It's 5.2%. But since we kept adding the interest back in and computing that 0.43% based on each of these, slowly growing principles, you actually get a little more interest than 5.2%, and that's called the effective. So it will take a little bit of time. Maybe I'll finish this table on my own, and then I'll show you on Tuesday, because I don't want to make you sit through it all, what I actually end up getting. But you would keep doing this table for all 12 months. And then what you would do is you would take the interests from each month and tally those up together. You add them together. And in the end, your answer will be really close to this 114.40 we got by doing the simple interest, but it'll be slightly more. And so your interest rate, your effective interest rate might be like 5.3 or 5.4%. And it doesn't seem like much, but over time it really adds, it kind of grows. And again, it's exponential growth. But yeah, so next time, Tuesday, we'll finish, I'll finish this weekend. And then Tuesday, I'll show you what I get. And we'll talk more about compound interest. We'll talk more about like the formulas for modeling it, which we've already talked about way back when we did exponentials, but we're gonna have more explicit formulas now that are kind of more substantial than we did before. It'll do a lot more examples with compound interest. There's a lot of cool things you can do, like this whole process where you do things monthly, you can generalize it. And there's a compound interest formula where you can specify when the interest is compounded. So you can do things weekly if you wanted. You could do it biannually, every 4 months, if that's your thing, and all sorts of different things you can do. But I don't want to go too long. So any questions?
Is the interest gonna go up by 0.04 every single time, or is that just like the first 4?
It kind of looks like it, and for a period of time, it will keep going up by 4 cents, but eventually it'll go by.
But it's not constant.
Yeah, no.
Okay, I was just making sure.
Yeah, no, it's a good observation though. It's going to grow by an increasing amount, actually. So exponential functions are really weird in that they grow, the rate at which they grow increases. And it increases, if you want to kind of, an interesting fact, the rate at which exponential functions, so suppose your exponential function is e to the x, the rate at which e to the x grows, are you ready? Is e to the x. So like, if you looked at how fast the exponential functions grow, they grow exponentially. It's weird. But anyway, yeah, so it's not going to stay 4%. It'll go to like 5, 6, and go on. Eventually it'll be 100 million, but that's besides the point. Any other questions? Cool. So yeah, we'll do more this Tuesday. Hope everyone has a nice Halloween. Don't catch coronavirus. Um, and yeah, I'll see you next week.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah, hi Gary. Nice
Hello.
Frankenstein.
Yeah. Yeah, I figured out how to do the pictures. I had to make a Zoom account. So but yeah, I just wanted to let you know that I'm looking over the math homework and everything, and so if I need any help, I was wondering if maybe Sunday or Monday
Yeah.
I could email.
Sunday might work. Send me an email
Okay.
Saturday night or Sunday morning, and yeah, let's aim for Sunday
Okay.
then. All right.
All right, yeah, that sounds good.
Just send me an email. Let me know what time you'd be interested in. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
That's good. All right. I'll
Okay.
talk to you then.
Yep. Happy Halloween.
You too.